In the early hours of June 7th, 1992, three women disappeared from the same house in Springfield, Missouri. Their cars were still parked outside. Their purses were still inside. Their clothes, cigarettes, makeup, and keys had been left behind. The television was still on. The beds had been slept in. There were no signs of forced entry. No neighbors reported hearing screams. No one saw three women being forced into a vehicle. And yet, by sunrise, they were simply gone. More than 30 years later, investigators still cannot explain exactly what happened inside that quiet suburban home. Some believe the women willingly opened the front door. Others believe someone had been watching them for days. And one small detail, discovered only hours after they vanished, may have destroyed the most important piece of evidence before police even arrived. This is the story of one of America's most baffling unsolved disappearances, the Springfield Three. Springfield, Missouri, was considered one of the safest cities in the region during the early 1990s. Families knew their neighbors. Violent crime was relatively uncommon, and the neighborhood where this story began was the kind of place where people rarely locked their doors. 23-year-old Suzanne "Susie" Streeter had just graduated from Kickapoo High School. Like many graduates that weekend, she planned to celebrate with friends before thinking about the future. Her mother, 47-year-old Cheryl Levitt, was known as a caring and outgoing cosmetologist. Friends described her as independent, organized, and devoted to her daughter. After years of rebuilding her life, she had recently moved into a comfortable home on East Delmar Street. Susie's close friend, Stacy McCall, had also graduated that weekend. The two friends spent June 6th celebrating with classmates, visiting several graduation parties across Springfield. Originally, they planned to spend the night at another friend's home. But after arriving, they discovered the house was already crowded with relatives and guests sleeping on every available floor and couch. Rather than inconvenience anyone, the two young women made a simple decision. They would spend the night at Susie's house. It seemed completely ordinary. Around 2 a.m., the two arrived at the Delmar Street home where Cheryl was already inside. No one knows exactly what happened after that. No confirmed phone calls, no confirmed visitors, no confirmed arguments. Nothing. The next morning, June 7th, Stacy's friend Janelle Kirby drove to the house. They had plans for the day and expected the women to still be sleeping. Instead, they found something that immediately felt wrong. Every vehicle belonging to the women was still parked outside. Susie's Toyota, Cheryl's vehicle. Everything appeared normal. There were no broken windows, no damaged doors, no obvious signs of violence. When Janelle knocked, nobody answered. Thinking the women might simply be in the backyard or running a quick errand together, she tried the unlocked front door. Inside, the house looked almost untouched. Television on. Personal belongings everywhere. The family dog wandered through the home unharmed. Purses belonging to all three women sat inside. Their wallets were untouched. Keys remained in the house. Money had not been taken. Even Stacy's clothes from the previous evening were folded neatly where she had changed before going to bed. The women had seemingly vanished without preparing to leave. One detail immediately caught Janelle's attention. Near the front porch was a broken glass globe from an exterior light fixture. She carefully swept away the broken pieces, believing someone could accidentally step on them. It seemed like the responsible thing to do. Only later did investigators realize that the broken porch light might have been connected to the disappearance. By cleaning the glass before police arrived, any fingerprints, footprints, or trace evidence that might have existed were unknowingly destroyed. It remains one of the most frustrating moments in the investigation. Inside the home, another strange discovery raised even more questions. The answering machine had received messages overnight. Someone had listened to them. The messages had then been erased. No one has ever been able to determine who erased them. Friends later recalled hearing one of the messages before it disappeared. They described it as strange, vulgar, and unsettling. But because the recording was deleted, investigators could never analyze it. Was it a prank call? Was it connected to the disappearance? Or was it simply an unrelated coincidence? That answer has never been found. As more friends and family members arrived throughout the morning, concern quickly turned into panic. It made no sense. 3 women don't simply disappear together. One person disappearing without a trace is extraordinarily rare. 3 people disappearing from the same home at exactly the same time is almost unheard of. Police were contacted, but by then the house had already been entered by numerous friends and relatives trying to locate the missing women. Doors had been opened. Objects had been moved. The porch had been cleaned. People had walked throughout nearly every room. Without realizing it, they had contaminated what would become one of the most important crime scenes in Missouri history. Investigators immediately noticed something unusual. There were no obvious signs of a struggle. No overturned furniture, no blood, no damaged walls, no broken doors. Nothing suggested a violent kidnapping had taken place inside the house. Yet everything the women needed to survive remained behind. Medication, purses, identification, cars, clothing, even cigarettes and personal items remained exactly where they had been left. If the women had voluntarily left the home, why would they leave absolutely everything behind? If they had been forced out, how had someone managed to control 3 adults without alerting neighbors? Those 2 questions have haunted investigators for more than 3 decades. As detectives reconstructed the final known movements, they established the last confirmed timeline. Susie and Stacy had attended graduation celebrations with classmates throughout the evening. Multiple witnesses confirmed seeing them alive. Around 2 a.m., they arrived home. That was the final confirmed sighting. No verified witness has ever reported seeing the 3 women alive after that moment. No surveillance cameras captured vehicles arriving or leaving. Cell phones did not exist in everyday use. Home security cameras were virtually non-existent. The case had almost no digital evidence, only silence. Investigators interviewed neighbors hoping someone had noticed an unfamiliar vehicle or suspicious person. Most reported hearing nothing unusual. One neighbor believed they had heard a woman scream during the early morning hours, but they dismissed it after hearing the sound of traffic nearby. Whether that memory was connected to the disappearance has never been confirmed. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Despite thousands of tips, hundreds of interviews, and extensive searches, there was still no trace of Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, or Cheryl Levitt. It was as though the 3 women had stepped through the front door and vanished from the face of the earth. As investigators searched for answers, they quickly realized they weren't dealing with a typical missing persons case. Nothing fit. There was no ransom demand, no financial activity, no confirmed sightings, no abandoned vehicle, no body, no physical evidence pointing in any direction. It was as if the investigation had begun in the middle of a story, with the beginning already erased. The FBI joined local investigators, and soon thousands of tips poured in from across the country. Many sounded convincing. None could be proven. One caller claimed to have seen the women inside a green van speeding away before sunrise. Another reported seeing a frightened woman trying to attract attention at a nearby convenience store. Someone else insisted they had spoken with Susie days after the disappearance. Every lead was investigated. Every one eventually collapsed. One theory immediately caught investigators' attention. Could the women have known whoever came to the door? There were no signs that anyone had kicked the door open. No broken locks. No shattered windows. Nothing suggested a violent forced entry. That meant someone inside the house may have willingly opened the front door. At 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, who would Cheryl Levitt open the door for? A close friend? A neighbor? Someone she recognized? Or someone pretending to need help? Investigators considered every possibility. Then another disturbing question emerged. What if the women weren't all taken at the same time? Imagine Cheryl answering the door first. Imagine something happening outside. Susie and Stacy hear unfamiliar voices and come downstairs. Now, instead of 1 victim, there are 3. Police have never confirmed this happened, but it remains one of the most discussed possibilities because it explains one troubling fact: no signs of a struggle inside the house. Detectives also examined Susie's personal life. Like many young adults, she had recently ended relationships and had acquaintances from different circles. Investigators interviewed former boyfriends, friends from school, co-workers, and anyone who had attended graduation celebrations that night. Every timeline was reconstructed. Most people were eliminated. Some remained persons of interest in the public imagination, but none could be connected to enough evidence for charges. Attention also turned toward convicted criminals living in or passing through Springfield during that period. Several names surfaced repeatedly over the years. One of the most frequently discussed was Robert Craig Cox. Cox had a history of violent crimes and kidnappings. Even more disturbing, he was known to have been in the Springfield area around the time of the disappearances. Years later, while serving a prison sentence in another state, Cox made cryptic statements suggesting he knew more than he admitted. At one point, he reportedly claimed the women were dead. When investigators asked for details, he refused to provide them. Instead, he allegedly told authorities he would reveal everything only after his own mother had died. His comments generated headlines across the country. But there was one enormous problem. He never provided evidence. No locations, no witnesses, no physical proof. Nothing investigators could verify. To this day, law enforcement has never publicly identified him as the person responsible. His statements remain one of many frustrating dead ends. Another theory centered around the graduation parties themselves. Hundreds of young people had been celebrating across Springfield that evening. News spread quickly that Susie and Stacy had changed their plans at the last minute. Only a handful of people knew they would be spending the night at Susie's house instead of staying elsewhere. Did someone overhear the conversation? Did someone follow them? Or had the house itself already been selected before the young women even arrived home? No one knows. As the months passed, investigators expanded the search area far beyond Springfield. Fields, lakes, rural properties, abandoned wells, wooded areas, nothing. Not a single confirmed piece of physical evidence belonging to the women was ever recovered. Then came one of the most controversial moments in the entire investigation. In 2007, more than 15 years after the disappearances, crime writer Yanis McCall, Stacy's mother, supported renewed interest in a tip involving a hospital parking garage. An anonymous caller had claimed the bodies might have been buried beneath the concrete foundation while the structure was under construction shortly after the women vanished. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in. The equipment detected anomalies beneath part of the garage. For a brief moment, hope returned. Could investigators finally have found the women after all these years? Engineers and forensic specialists reviewed the scans. Some believed the anomalies could simply be construction materials or natural disturbances beneath the concrete. Others argued additional excavation should take place. Ultimately, no excavation was performed. Without stronger evidence, authorities concluded there was insufficient justification to tear apart a major public structure. The theory remains unresolved. Supporters believe the answer may still lie beneath the parking garage. Skeptics argue there has never been evidence linking the women to that location. It remains another mystery inside an already impossible case. Years continued to pass. Families aged. Parents died. Friends built new lives while carrying unanswered questions that never disappeared. Every anniversary brought renewed media attention. Every documentary generated new theories. Internet forums dissected every witness statement. Podcasts revisited every timeline. Yet despite decades of discussion, the central mystery has never changed. 3 women entered a quiet suburban home. By sunrise, every trace of them had vanished. Police continue to classify the Springfield Three as an active missing persons investigation. The case has never been closed. Investigators still believe someone knows what happened inside that house during the early hours of June 7th, 1992. Someone may have seen a vehicle. Someone may have heard a conversation. Someone may have kept a secret for more than 30 years. And sometimes, cold cases are solved not because of new technology, but because one person finally decides to tell the truth. Over the decades, investigators have returned to the evidence again and again, hoping that one overlooked detail might finally unlock the case. One of the biggest questions has always been timing. Exactly when did the 3 women disappear? The last confirmed sighting placed Susie and Stacy arriving at the house around 2 a.m. The next confirmed activity came only a few hours later when friends arrived and found the house empty. That leaves only a narrow window of time. Whatever happened quickly. Another question has never been answered. Why wasn't the family dog missing? The small Yorkshire Terrier was found alive inside the home, wandering freely. Whoever entered the house either ignored the dog completely or knew it wouldn't become a problem. Investigators have often pointed out that dogs can react differently depending on whether they recognize a visitor. If the women willingly opened the door for someone familiar, the dog's calm behavior suddenly makes more sense. But there is no way to prove it. The case has also become a lesson in how fragile a crime scene can be. Before police arrived, well-meaning friends and relatives had walked through the house. Some answered the ringing telephone. Others straightened up rooms. The broken porch light had been swept away. Potential fingerprints may have been touched. Possible footprints may have been covered. No one realized they were standing inside what would become one of America's most famous unsolved disappearances. Those first few hours can never be recreated. Investigators have often acknowledged that valuable evidence was almost certainly lost forever. Even so, detectives refuse to believe the case is impossible to solve. Modern forensic science continues to improve. DNA technology has advanced dramatically since 1992. Touch DNA, digital mapping, forensic genealogy, and new analytical techniques have helped solve countless cold cases once considered hopeless. If preserved evidence still exists somewhere within police storage, future technology could reveal information that investigators simply couldn't obtain 3 decades ago. The challenge is that so little physical evidence was recovered in the first place. Without a body, without a confirmed crime scene, without forensic evidence pointing toward one suspect, the investigation has always depended heavily on witness statements. And memories fade. People move away. Witnesses pass away. Small details disappear with time. Yet investigators continue receiving occasional tips. Most led nowhere. Some are impossible to verify. A few still remain under review. Law enforcement has repeatedly emphasized one important point. Someone out there knows more than they have ever admitted. Cases involving multiple victims rarely exist in complete isolation. People talk. Someone notices unusual behavior. Someone hears a confession. Someone remembers an unexplained absence. Sometimes the smallest piece of forgotten information becomes the missing link decades later. That belief is one reason the Springfield Three case remains active today. It has never been classified as solved. It has never been closed. The reward for information has changed over the years, but the investigation itself continues. For the families, however, time has brought no closure. Instead, every birthday, every holiday, and every anniversary serves as another reminder that 3 women left behind an empty house and a mystery that has never been explained. Susie Streeter would never become the woman her friends imagined she would be. Stacy McCall never had the opportunity to begin the adult life she had celebrated only hours before disappearing. Cheryl Levitt never returned home to the place she had worked so hard to build. 3 lives ended in uncertainty. 3 families were left with questions instead of answers. And one quiet neighborhood became forever associated with one of the most baffling disappearances in American history. Even today, investigators continue to revisit old files, hoping that advances in forensic science, or a single truthful witness, will finally answer the question that has haunted Springfield for more than 30 years. Who came to the front door that night? Why were 3 women taken without a struggle? Why was nothing stolen? Why were the purses, keys, and cars left behind? Who erased the answering machine messages? And where did the Springfield Three go? Until those questions are answered, the case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the United States. If someone knows the truth, they have carried it for more than 3 decades. And history has shown that even the oldest cold cases can be solved when one person finally decides they can no longer stay silent. If you have information about the disappearance of Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Cheryl Levitt, investigators continue to encourage anyone with credible information to contact the Springfield Police Department or the appropriate crime tip line. Because somewhere, someone knows what happened after that front door opened. And until that person speaks, The mystery of the Springfield Three remains unsolved.